Hey, good evening, everyone. This is State Representative Brad Halbrook coming to you on our first Tuesday night roundtable and town halls since the new year and since really before Christmas. We've not been on here, and so we got lots of stuff to talk about as we're back in Springfield for the second week of this new spring session. Guys, there's been a lot of water and illegal aliens under the bridge since we've last talked.
That's good.
And some of us have been able to witness that. So, hey, with that, let's go to Representative Dave Freese with a welcome from Southwestern Illinois. David, welcome. What's going on?
Good evening. Well, not much. Just sort of kind of holding down the fort here in Southern Illinois, God's country, as they say. Look forward to getting into Springfield. I'm really curious to see what, if anything, is going to get done this spring.
Right, exactly. And Dan Calkins from the true center of Central Illinois, the capital of the world. What's happening in the 88th?
We're here doing outreach, town hall meetings, working with constituents, trying to keep up with all the changes that are going on in our state. Looking forward to being with everybody again. It's this just weird time right now. So we're fighting through it. People need to have hope and stay focused and be sure to vote in the primary on March 19th.
Exactly. And with that, Leader Chairman Chris Miller of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, you're leading us through the murkiness and the tumult and the chaos on the way towards truth, logic, and common sense. Leader Chairman Miller, what's going on?
Well, we are very glad to be back here this evening because we are your home for truth, logic, and common sense, as Representative Halbrook mentioned. And hopefully we will dive straight into those three concepts this evening. And these are things that you can believe in because, as the old cliche goes, the first casualty of politics is the truth. And so we'll try to give you a home that you can land the plane on. So welcome and looking forward to the conversation this evening.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, before I bring on Director Colin Mosley, I want to say, as I've been out and about the last month or two, I hear from people that say, hey, they really enjoy our live streams. They like our content. And with that, I just always hope that you will like, share, subscribe, and follow our content as we attempt to overcome the big tech overlords and their algorithmic gods. So with that, Director Colin Mosley, kick off what we got going on here this evening.
Well, we've got a great program this morning, talking about what we expect to see this spring in Springfield, and of course also highlighting some of the issues from the illegal immigration crisis we have here in Illinois. One thing's for sure, on the Democrats' long list of priorities, there's really nothing that benefits the working Illinois family, and so that's why the Freedom Caucus is here. So excited to be back in Springfield this spring and to get to work.
Excellent. Well, you talked about Democrat priorities, gentlemen. I'm just going to throw it right open, and anybody wants to kind of walk through these few bullet points here of kind of what we see the Democrats' priorities for this spring session here in 2024.
Oh, well, we've talked about this medical assisted suicide last session, and we'll see what comes up of it. I think we do the natural internment where you can bury your loved one under a tree or something. I don't know.
Compost your family members.
There it is. Compost your family members. I am continually amazed at some of the things that the Democrats come up with. And, hopefully sometime in my lifetime, I'm going to be able to sit down with one of them and just say, okay, where does all this shit come from? Stuff come from?
I think you had it right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, Leader Miller, I know you're really on the cutting edge of the green revolution. What's your thoughts about what you expect to see there? Any ideas?
Well, it's like I said, the first casualty of politics is truth disappears, and it's the same way with the green energy movement. It's not based in any measure of truth or science. It's measured in fantasy land where Peter Pan and Tinkerbell are circling the Capitol Rotunda and sprinkling pixie dust all over colleagues there to get them to believe a lie. But the Democrats and J.B. Pritzker's agenda really doesn't change much because they're the party of death, as we saw on there. They want to abort your babies, legalize drugs, release dangerous criminals, tent cities for illegal immigrants, and to top all that off, they want to ban your guns. And so, at least they're consistent in their bad ideas. And there is a reason why we call the Capitol the bad idea factory, because you just can't make it up.
Right, exactly. And as we go to the last couple of bullet points here on the slide, I'm going to turn to the attorney in the room, and we're going to maybe touch on any additional gun restrictions and how they're soft on crime, some examples we've seen in bills that have emerged in the last couple of weeks. And, guys, I would have thought that the Safety Act that was put in place 2 years ago and the gun ban and the assault weapon registry, I thought that was going to solve all these problems. But yet there's more legislation to go deeper. Representative Freeze, any thoughts on any of these legal issues here?
Yeah. The gun is the biggest, baddest boogeyman for the Democrats. Don't understand it. I mean, I've got numerous firearms and I've yet to shoot and kill anybody. So the latest is they're going to take suspend your driver's license if you violate this firearm registry in some form or fashion. But yet at the same time, the people that come into our country illegally, they want to give them driver's license. So they're breaking the law, just getting into our country, and then they want to turn around and give them a driver's license. As Chris said, you can't make this stuff up because, I own firearms illegally, but yet for some reason they want to take all my guns away from me.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, more illegal aliens flowing across the border, as we witnessed and continue to see happen. And which brings us to kind of our next slide here. I'll bring on the screen the sheer numbers of aliens that have crossed illegally into this nation. Gentlemen, I'll just throw it open. Anybody want to speak to this slide here real quick?
Well, one of the things that doesn't get factored into the cost of this is what it costs our local communities at the local level. If you're talking schools and hospitals, if you work in a school, you're a school teacher. This is the way Illinois builds schools. They build schools for the capacity that your students are right now. They don't build for growth. So we have millions of people coming into our country and our local communities, and our schools cannot handle this influx. We're going to have, 40, 50 kids in a school, or they're going to be, maybe school tents. Who knows what's going to happen, how they're going to handle this. And we, the taxpayers, pick up that tab. It's really unfortunate. There's stories about some kids going remote because they're turning some of these schools into shelters for these illegals. It's very, very unfortunate for our taxpayers.
Right. And we saw, go ahead.
I know in one of our local schools here, Mount Zion, previously their English as a second language, ESL, accounted for about, I want to say 2% or 0.2% of the student population, and they had one teacher and they were doing fine. Today, that the percentage of the students enrolled in the English as a second language is 4%. It's gone from 0.2% a couple of years ago to 4% of this small rural conservative school district just outside Decatur. And they've had to add a teacher, classrooms. The cost is, David talked about, is burdening their budget. And there's only one way to solve that, obviously, and that's to raise their property taxes.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And Representative Miller, these numbers are staggering. More than 12 million illegal aliens are estimated to come into the U.S. under Biden. That's more than the individual populations of 44 states. There's only a handful of states that have more population than this. So we're seeing an invasion of an entire state under this current administration. Over 8 million that have been encountered that are here illegally. Chris, any thoughts on the amount of the numbers here, the sheer numbers? We saw 300,000, a record crossing in December, just before we got to the border this spring. What do you think?
Well, I know that we took the time to go down and visit the border with the Congresswoman Mary Miller and also a state legislator from Texas. And because we wanted to see this in real time rather than depending upon the fake news to give us the information that we were wanting to know. And I know that it's, you know, the Border Patrol and all the folks down there. I mean, just last night I was watching the news and they said that made the comment, they said, we don't need any more money. We just need to have the ability to enforce the laws that are on the book.
Right.
I mean, the solutions to this are very simple. Close the border and build the wall. And I know that, you know, and the problem is these people have carte blanche. And I know they even, you know, we're making some tongue-in-cheek comments while some of the residents of Illinois or New York City don't take a trip down there across. And because when they get back to the city, they're going to give them a credit card. They're going to put them up in the nicest hotel and they're going to pay for everything. They thought this would be a good destination for their own local citizens to go take advantage of this nonsense that they're doing. But there's known terrorists. There's, you know, it's a fact that 70% of the people crossing are military age males. And I mean, it's just a form of insanity what we're doing to ourselves with this invasion of our country.
Right, exactly. A couple of you gentlemen had talked about the schools and what's going on there. You know, we know there's over 100 nationalities that are crossing routinely, upwards of nearly 200 nationalities, all different languages. Our local schools are not, you know, if you had the room, David, you know, to put them in the schools, then we get into a situation with a language barrier. You know, the other impact that this affects everybody in our state is the amount of our tax dollars that are going to fund this operation here in the state of Illinois, all of the illegals coming in, which now is in Chicago is somewhere around 35 million just in Chicago alone. But here's a slide that talks about some of the finances. This is really a small part of the finances.
And just the most recent finding. I mean, you know, this is the most recent 160 million, you know, of the 1 point whatever was, I mean, 1.234 billion that we were at just in the last 2 years on spending for illegal immigration. I mean, this is, you know, something that I think is going to be on the front burner when it's budget time here this spring. Mm-hmm. You know, we are 2 weeks away from the governor's budget address. And him and the mayor are fighting over the approach to this stuff in Chicago and around the suburbs. And, you know, I don't know that there are many more budget busters than this issue right now. Granted, you know, as we know, it never matters. The governor is going to call the budget balanced, no matter how unbalanced it is. But the proof is in the pudding. And you've got hundreds of millions of dollars in unplanned spending. I don't know where that money comes from except for straight out of our wallets.
Right.
Yeah, this is definitely unsustainable. I mean, there's already rumors that we're going to be at least $1 billion over budget, I think is what I've already heard. Mm-hmm. And this isn't stopping. You know, we're still paying for all of this, food, housing, everything. We're footing the bill for all of this.
Right. Yeah, and Dan, regardless, I mean, we put $1.5 billion, $2 billion into healthcare and housing and all the stuff between you know, the end of the fiscal year here ends June 30th. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just this fiscal year. This all starts all over again next year. So
well, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, or I guess the biggest piece of this puzzle for the upcoming budget. We're seeing every agency asking for more money. You know, the COVID money's gone. We're out. We've allocated it, spent it, and started all the programs we could, and you know, flushed that money down the toilet in a lot of places. But you pay attention to what these other, like the Board of Education, you know, they want like $600 million more for next year. Mm-hmm. You have the employees of our universities who line people working every day to keep our schools open and running. They're coming to the table and saying that they're not being paid commensurate with other state employees, and they want their pay adjusted, another hundreds of millions of dollars. We have our counties who are now subject to the no cash bail, and we're seeing our circuit clerks are being overburdened.
They
And no
wanna need
money.
more employees.
Yeah, and there's no money. The state has not allocated any money to make up for that. There's another few $100 million. You go on, and you look at all of the things that are coming. DCFS, I'm sure, is going to ask for several $100 million more. You put that on top of the billion plus almost $2 billion, I think, by the time we finally figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way.
Right.
This budget is going to be brutal.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Don't forget about our ongoing pension crisis that we've got at various levels.
Right.
Yeah.
well, yeah. What was it? 141 billion dollars, I think, was the article this past week that estimated what we're committed for and what we're short. And it's 141 plus billion, not million, billion.
Right.
And we've got a $50 billion budget, annual budget, and we're upside down like 3 times that amount, just in pensions.
And nothing's been done to change the course there. Nothing's been done to kind of trying to rein that in and right the ship on that one. Chris, you were getting ready to say something?
Well, I think that an interesting caveat to all this for people to be able to get their mind wrapped around what a crisis this is since J.B. Pritzker and his administration has come into office, because they came in the same time we did, that the budget's grown by a minimum of $15 billion since J.B. Pritzker has been there. And just from this conversation, it looks like they're going to be asking for another increase of the $15 billion. And at the same time, we bled population. We lost a congressional seat. We've lost some major industry in our state, and the hits just keep on coming. And they just have an insatiable appetite to spend more money. Tax, borrow, spend. It's totally out of control.
Right. Gentlemen, with that, let's bring up our next slide. We do have solutions, right? We do have solutions to this. So again, I'll just throw this open. If anybody wants to take this and kind of run with some of these ideas and talk about some of the solutions that we're offering up.
Well, I think the first one is just common sense. Close the border. When Trump was president, he was building a wall. We had all these wall panels out there that needed to be put up and that should have been put up under the Biden administration. My understanding, there was, I think it was 64 executive actions that Biden's taken to increase illegal immigration. Stop building a wall, sell off all these wall panels that should have been built up. It's just madness. Really is madness. Lacks common sense.
Right.
No, and I think part of that too, David, is the remain in Mexico.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, we have to close the border and enforce the border, but we also have to enforce the laws that are on the books.
Yeah, because Mexico's facilitating this with other human trafficking. Yeah, and the government just turning a blind eye to all this. If we had a remain in Mexico, you would not see these people coming through, just walking through Mexico.
Right. Well, the cartels are the government in Mexico now.
Yeah,
and that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in it all day, I mean, as legislators, we have to keep in mind, and it would be nice if we could just put the citizens of Illinois first. If we could put the citizens of America first, and a lot of these problems just solve themselves, because you can't look at that and actually look at what they're doing policy wise. All of it makes life worse for the everyday working men and women here in our state. It makes life more difficult. Inflation's out of control, and it would be, hopefully they will remember what it was like to have a booming economy, border security, economic opportunity, and a closed border. Hopefully people will remember those things and what that looked like as we go into this season that we're coming into right now.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think the Democrats have the stomach to touch this, because this really seems to be a voter registration drive for them.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Colin, I know that you're working on the legislative agenda. You know, I'm sure there's going to be lots of bills and lots of resolutions about auditing different programs, different agencies. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from your angle, your perspective on all that?
Well, the thing is, we know in the past, when members of the Freedom Caucus have called for forensic audits of different state funds, the Auditor General has called them up and said, "This is just not possible. It would take years and millions of dollars." And you know, the response to that is, "Well, isn't that kind of the problem?" You know, the fact that the Auditor General, who is, you know, a state officer, is not even able to be tasked with auditing state dollars. That's a huge problem. And so I think that's an angle of this issue that we continue to push, because one, it shows a total breach of infrastructure in the state of Illinois. And two, it's important to know there's no accountability with this spending. We have absolutely no idea where the majority of this money is going. And it shouldn't take a team of lawyers like Mr. Freeze here to read through allocations to understand where this money is going at all.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs in the state of Illinois that we can't account for this stuff. We've been working on this for 3 months and longer, trying to get an accountability, and it's buried here, there, and yonder. And some of the responses we get is, well, just go to the comptroller site yourself and check it out. Well, that's going to be fun.
Sure.
Yeah. So, hey, Chairman Miller, we're going to close this out. I'm going to bring this last slide up. You're the leader of the Illinois Freedom Caucus. The State Freedom Caucus network is growing across the nation as more states are added. And guess what else is growing? The attacks from all directions. Why is it important for folks that watch us and are part of us to plug in to what we're about here, Chris?
Well, I think it's important that you know that people really enjoy the fact that we're on the offensive, that we're peeling back the layers of the onion, and that we're exposing a lot of the corruption that's going on in both the Democrat Party as well as the Republican Party. But with being on the offense comes, like Brad mentioned, that we're under attack. We have 3 members that are being primaried by the radical left, and the evil Illinois Education Association, as well as others, are funding these things, writing big checks, getting them up on media. And so we need your help. And, you know, if you can find it within your heart to send any amount of money to the Illinois Freedom Caucus to help fight the fight and to keep great members in their seats, we would sincerely appreciate it. And and continue to like and share our content and spread the word. We're fighting for you. We're a voice for the voiceless. And so help us to continue on.
Exactly. All right, gentlemen, any closing thoughts here as we wrap this up? Before we go, I'll just throw it up. You guys go around the table, say whatever you want in closing, and then we're going to close out and leave folks with a good evening.
Well, I finally got a Women's Bill of Rights filed, trying to keep biological men out of women's spaces. It's long overdue, and would appreciate everybody's support on that. That's one of the other maddening, crazy things that we need to put a stop to.
Exactly. Dan, closing thoughts.
We're still focused on the Chinese Communist battery plant Goshen is trying to build in Illinois. I know the Governor Pritzker's already given them, I think, $125 million for nothing, just as they call it a closing fund. I don't know if we'll ever see that or get it back if hopefully that plant doesn't get built. You know, very proud of the work that we've done in the past year. It's you go look back at places that we've gone. If you have a gathering, you've got conservative folks getting together, we'd love to bring our message to you. We're fighting for the everyday working people in this state. I think this is it's kind of our cause, and we look forward to seeing you perhaps in your hometown soon.
Exactly. Chris?
Well, I think it's important that we that you stay educated and informed, especially on all of the green energy hoax that we're dealing with. Ladies and gentlemen, this green energy plan is a complete figment of the radical left's imagination. With every windmill, with every solar panel, we're helping China conquer the world. And so it's important for people to be the adults in the room. When you think about Farm Bureau and a lot of these other organizations that are sitting in silence, they need to be speaking up and standing up for the best interests of the farming community, as well as the best interests of the citizens in Illinois. And it's never a good idea to empower your enemies to conquer you. It's absolute foolishness. We need to dig, baby, dig, and drill, baby, drill.
Right. Yeah, great. And I just want to highlight a story that broke a few days ago from the McLean County situation. There's a taxpayer-funded bus company up there. I don't know, a dozen electric buses. And Rivian, the EV manufacturer up there, back in November, emailed the bus company about how they were keeping these buses charged in cold weather. Now, back in November, it wasn't even cold yet, but the response was that they have to put these buses into a heated garage and they charge them at night, off-peak hours, but they have to warm up those batteries, in essence, trick them into taking the charge so that they can be charged and go out and do their thing in the day. And we know what cold weather does to batteries when they're out running. It just drains them so much faster. But that's an unfolding story to just expose the lunacy of the EV industry and what's happening there. Colin, with that, what did I miss, or what did we miss before we close out? If you want to just wrap it up, and then we're going to go to the out.
Yeah, Brad, I don't think you missed anything at all. I think that the nail is being hit on the head from the Freedom Caucus, that these issues are totally unsustainable, that it doesn't make any sense. And, as Chairman Miller often says, we call it the Capitol many names, one of those being the Puzzle Palace, because it sure is hard to put these things together sometimes. So, I'm encouraged continually by the work of the Freedom Caucus, and you can bet that we're fighting for you. And the two things I would encourage everyone to do that's listening is to make sure that not only are you subscribed and following our content and our newsletters, but also I would tap into Wire Points, who has a daily briefing, and also Breakthrough Ideas for their newsletter. Those are two really good news sources to keep up on what's going on in the Capitol this spring.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Gentlemen, with that, I'm going to hit the out video, and we'll talk to you real soon.